funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karis's Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karis, and you are listening to the guest edition of Karis's Comedy Corner. I've got two fantastic guests today. This was a very impromptu show because they have a fantastic off-Broadway show going on this Sunday, and the following Sunday, we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, we always have to thank our sponsor, because if we don't, they get a little upset with us. So we don't want to get them upset because we want to continue to do the show. Who is it? SelectFlex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? It's also called an insert. What do you do with that? You put it in your shoe. And let me tell you, it's better than anything you'll find over the counter because these orthotics have a geometric beam. That's what they tell me it is, a geometric beam. And you can make the arch firm, or extra firm, depending on what your needs are. Do me a favor. Just go to their website, selectflex.com. They've got a 30-second video. It shows you how these work. They are fantastic. I have them in all of my shoes, my sneakers. It's UGG season now, ladies. So you'll want to put them in those shoes because those have no support. Your entire body will thank you. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, there's a 25% discount if you put in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, because you, my listeners, I feel are like my family, except I don't argue with you as much as I do my real family. So just go to their website. They are fantastic. And we always thank them for their support. Get it? Support? No? Okay. All right. Let's move on. I am excited. I got a Instagram message from somebody that I adore, a stand-up comedian, actress. And what I was thinking about today, and I want to say it right off the top, that I've known her for about probably 10 years. And what I am so impressed is that as a stand-up comic, she has gotten so strong, so great, so fantastic. And I really, really am impressed because she's an incredibly hard worker. And what she has mastered to do in New York City, to run an actual room, a bona fide room where comics who are like roaches, myself included, once they find out there's a show, they will come a-coming and crawling. But in addition to all of this, years ago, and I'm going to let her tell the story, she put together a show, her and her mom put together a show. It's called The Jackie Mason Musical. Yes, that Jackie Mason. What is her relationship to Jackie Mason? Sheba Mason, who I'm speaking about, is Jackie Mason's daughter. And there is quite the story behind it. Some people might know, but I'm going to let Sheba really give us the behind the scenes and how this whole musical came about. And we never usually have two guests at the same time, or I should say rarely. But we have the actor that is playing Jackie Mason, who sounds like Jackie Mason without trying to do Jackie Mason, Ian Wehrle. So Sheba Mason, Ian Wehrle, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for contacting me this morning. I was like, I saw all your messages. I'm like, oh my God. And it worked out. It was a good day. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having us. That was a wonderful introduction. Really cool introduction. Thank you. And thank you for your kind words.
So nothing happens by accident. And I swear to God, and I said this to you in the message, yesterday, I said to myself, because I see New York Comedy Festival is on now, and Caroline's on Broadway, which I've kind of been meaning to go down to the club just to check it out and see what's been going on there, because I haven't been there in a long time. Plus, Caroline Hirsch was in the news recently talking about all the weed smell that's outside, which is a complete another story. But I saw someplace your show, the Jackie Mason musical. And at first I thought, oh, I missed it because I saw it someplace posted that you had done it. And then I looked, and then I saw that it was the next couple of Sundays. You did 3 consecutive Sundays, November 6th, which is past, and you'll be there November 13th and then November 20th. And it's in the middle of the afternoon. It's at 3 p.m., which I think is perfect, because sometimes Sunday night you want to like wind down. At least I do. So I am so excited. But I swear to God, I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm like, I have to see this. I've known her for so long.
Wow.
I have to see this musical. The story is fascinating. So let's just start. Let's just start from a little bit of kind of the beginning of your story with Jackie and your mom.
So this play is about my mother's relationship with Jackie. She was with him for 10 years. She met him at Wolfie's Delicatessen in Miami Beach. So the play spans from 1977 to like 1986, right after I was born. Boom, gone. And so, so he plays Jackie, and like it begins like in Wolfie's Delicatessen where Jackie is sitting with his friend Willie, and he sends somebody over to the table, and my mother is sitting with her very dominating, overbearing Jewish mother, and he says, do you want to meet Jackie Mason? And her mother says, well, of course she does, certainly. So, you know, he says, hello, are you a man with me a long time? And then her mother answers, we just moved here 3 days ago. I've loved your act, and I've always been a great fan of yours. And then he says, you know, every time he asks her a series of questions, and he says, every time I ask her a question, the answer comes out of your mouth. She must also be a ventriloquist. So that's like the beginning of the story.
But that's a true story too. I mean, it's actually portrayed verbatim as it occurred, you know, without the music, obviously, but verbatim as it occurred in her actual life. It's marvelous.
Yeah, it's verbatim. So many of the lines in the play are taken like directly from truth.
So they met at a deli. I didn't realize that it was 10 years. I mean, I read your story, but I forgot, you know, some of those details, because I know that later on there was a whole paternity suit, and I want to get into that in a second. So your mom and Jackie, did they live together, like almost like common law husband and wife, or?
No, because he's not, you know, he's a bachelor forever, you know. She was his main, she would like to say she was like his harem favorite, you know. So basically she was trained by her very dominating mother to sort of turn a blind eye to his indiscretions. And he did once come to Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house, which was like really normal for him.
Wow.
Like a normal guy thing to do.
Right.
And, you know, there were always other women on the side. There's a girl who plays Trixie, who's a waitress in the show. She sort of represents, you know, a bunch of the other women that were in his life. So they never really lived together, no. But he did once buy her a present, which is shown in the play. And then she opens it up, and
so it's very interesting that this is behind the scenes, and we're not. Your dad, what was? Can I say your dad? Do you refer to
sure.
Your dad? Right? I mean, he's your father. Period. I mean, that's, you know. Again, I want to get to that point quickly, but your dad was a very, very talented performer, right? Like we nobody denies any of that. This is
the best. The best.
Right. He was he's revered. And I have to tell you a quick story. I'll never forget. I went to go see your dad. I forget which iteration. Maybe it was The World According to Jackie, which was huge on Broadway. Do you want a Tony for that? Did he win a Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was that one. My father, who loved comedy, but he was crying. We were laughing so loud. And I love, which your dad was a master at, ethnic humor. And, you know, you and I are both comics, and we see what's going on. You can't say this, you can't say that, you can't say this, but this never, this person gets upset, they put it on Twitter, their whole thing, they cancel you, you don't have work, you know, all this. I mean, I can't imagine your father and all of those comics at that time trying to do what they did now.
Right.
You know, and the thing is that all those people, men and women, Joan Rivers, the same thing, you know, Don Rickles, all those people are really laid the groundwork for stand-up comedy as we know it today. So he was, you know, he was great. He had tons of material, but he was also a rabbi, wasn't he? Do I have that story straight? Did he?
He was a rabbi, and his whole family were rabbis. And he was doing sermons, and then he started making jokes, and he realized, well, I could really be funny and get laughs in women, you know? So that's how that happened. He had to sever ties with his own very strictly religious father early on in his life in order to pursue what he wanted to do. It was really taboo.
Well, and isn't there an irony there too, Sheba? I mean, just thinking about your life story, thinking about my life story, us being kind of fatherless people, him choosing to not pursue fatherhood. Well, it's just a parallel. It's a weird parallel that I never thought about before. He actually severed his ties with his father. So dominant in his psychology, in his spirituality, in his whole concept of being a human being was no parenting, at all, and shut it off from that side. And that's cool. I never thought about that side.
Yeah, but his father was available to him up until he was like in his 20s.
Well, his father was, but he decided in his mind, no, I have to shut it off in order to pursue what I want to do, right?
But
Yeah.
what I find fascinating that he was from a very religious family. He still, it's not, he didn't denounce his faith. He just went a different way. And also, and I just know this from later years, and it happens to be election day, and not to get totally into politics, but he was known to be on the conservative side, which is known to be about family values. Like it's fine that if you don't want to pursue a relationship with your mother afterwards, that's fine. Plenty of people don't do that. They get divorced, whatever. But no one's discounting that. But he did not recognize you as his daughter,
well, there was a blood test when I was a baby.
Right.
And, it was big news. We were on like Entertainment Tonight, Current Affair. We were on the cover of Parade magazine and this magazine and that newspaper. And he did deny it, but I looked just like him. And then when there was a blood test, it was like 1,000% that I was his kid,
Okay.
And
so what was his reaction? What was his reaction though? Didn't he deny it?
Yes. So there's actually a scene in the play where it's called I Never Met This Yenta. And you see Jackie in court with his hands up, raise your right hand. And he's like, first he says, he denies it. And then as the song progresses, you could maybe give her a little bit of a flavor of that.
Well, really, just the point is that he couldn't deny it anymore. He couldn't bullshit his way through it, as they say. But at the end of it, he goes, well, I guess I might have seen her off and on and now and then, but I'm not the type to settle down, which I'll confess again, though I might have had this yearning to be with her all the time. I thought the matter over, and I guess the baby's mine. I wasn't happy about it.
Oh my God, that's hilarious and brilliant. Oh my gosh. So it's, first of all, I can't wait to come and see you. So we're just sort of scratching the surface here, folks. This is really, it's entertaining to its core, but it's sad because as we know, he passed, that was this year, right? It was 2022. If it was
last year.
Okay. Yeah. And you didn't really get to have any relationship with him at all.
Well, and I even have a joke posthumously. People say, how do you feel about the afterlife in regards to your father? And I say, well, of course I believe in the afterlife. He's been ghosting me for years.
So that's a great joke. And only you can say that. Okay. Only you can say that. So, and it can't be like a random father, like you had a famous father. So that it definitely makes more sense. And especially with the backstory that you have. Oh my God, I have so many questions in my head. So I commend you. I commend you because, behind all the comedy, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of tragedy. I mean, to be rejected by your own parent. But I also want people to know that not only did he deny it, it was public. First of all, as you just mentioned, you were on all of the shows. And at that time, let me just reel in all the people that are under 30. We only had like 3 channels, maybe a little bit of cable and stuff like that. So when you were on the news, everybody saw it. And people bought magazines and people,
that.
And tabloids. So it was really known. Whatever gossipy thing was out there or celebrity thing that was out there, it was known. You knew about it.
It occurred the 1 week that Trump was not on the magazines.
When he was when he was doing all of his shenanigans. It's so funny. So So it was very, very public, but people don't realize that and you can tell me how many years this has been, but you used to pass your father, as, by the way, did I, when I would go to Broadway Comedy Club. He would be outside. There is a diner called the Applejack Diner on 56th and Broadway. And I will never forget, like, the first time years ago, I was walking home one night from Broadway Comedy Club, and I'm like, is that Jackie Mason? You know, and he was around a lot of people, you know, and it was like midnight. It was, you know, really late. And I would say anytime I walked by there at, you know, and it was always like later at night, like, you know, I never saw him at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He was always there. And there were times when I saw him by himself. So you passed him by hundreds of thousands of times. I mean, what is that like? And did you ever go over to him? Did you ever feel to go over? Did he know who you were? I mean, what was that whole experience like for you?
Well, there's a lot of stories about me going over to him. Because I happen to live right there.
I'm sorry, in the musical, do you have stories?
No, I mean, like in real life, you know, like at the Applejack Diner, there was one time I went over to him when I was working in the Broadway theaters, and I saw him outside of his own Broadway show when I was 19, and he didn't recognize me. He really acted like I was pretty, you know, like he was going to hit on me. And I said, you know, don't you recognize me? And I said, I'm your daughter. And he said, well, I want you to come to my show tomorrow night, and we'll talk it over. That's how he talks. He always says, we'll talk it over. So, and he says, if they don't let you in, then come to my house. So I started to take out a pen, and his manager was a very like dominating person in his life. She really kind of prevented us from ever having any kind of ties. She really severed any ties. The couple of times I went over to him at the Applejack Diner, there was one time I had this joke published in the New York Post once that said, sometimes I wish a better looking comedian was my father, like Woody Allen or Rosie O'Donnell. And when I went over to him, he says, this is who you compare me to, a fat yenta like Rosie O'Donnell and a schmuck like Woody Allen. And then he kind of like told me to go fuck myself. Oh. You remember that?
Oh my God. So then all these other times you just walked by him. Did he glance up? Did he realize you were there? Did he?
After that, I kind of gave up at that point. Mm-hmm. I just gave up. You know, how much can you push someone, you know?
Right. Of course. Now, the person that was his manager, because I remember when he passed away, was that the person that was his wife, or did he get married, or they say, right, there was something weird that
they never really lived together. It was kind of like a faux marriage, you know, like just for like sort of financial purposes and appearances. They never had a wedding. You know, there are witnesses who say he wasn't even there. And towards the end of his life, everyone knew that like they never lived together ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And he had a girlfriend, you said?
Yeah, he had multiple girlfriends, even like into his 80s, you know?
It's amazing what celebrityness can do to you. I used to say, right, like if Owen Wilson worked at CVS, he'd never get laid. You know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing the power of celebrity. So Ian, how did you guys meet? Because I want to get into the musical. How did you guys meet?
Sure. Well, it's a pretty simple story. I was working a day job. It was 10 years ago. I was working a day job, and you know, I'd been in the city for a while, and I said to myself, you know what, I'm just sick of this. And actually, I didn't mention this. We answered that question a lot, but we answered that question last night, and I didn't mention the fact that that year, 2012, was the first time in my life, because I also had an absentee father, just as a human being, as a New Jersey Jew kind of person, single mother household thing, and I'd never met him before in my life, but it was 2012 that I actually got on Facebook and looked him up and did the whole thing. He was a Turkish Jew, business guy living in Istanbul. He met my mother in college, and they did their affair, and then, you know, they separated. But it was 2012 that I went to Istanbul and met my father, had this huge kind of cathartic reunion in a beautiful way. It was a beautiful way. And then I came back to the United States. And when I came back to the United States after that event, I was just like, I just can't keep, doing this same lifestyle that I had before. Things have changed now for me emotionally, psychologically, and I got to do something different. So it was actually, and I this is the first time I'm even realizing this, but it was that motivation that got me to leave the day job, look on Actors Access. First listing that popped up when I did it was the Jackie Mason musical, and I say, I can do that. So then I submitted. Yeah, it's really insane, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. So I submitted. I went in. I sang Tomorrow from Annie in a Jackie Mason, as Jackie Mason. And they said, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And we have to hire him.
I mean, and he looks the part, a lot.
Right. Oh, yeah, I know. And then, of course, with more makeup and, and the wigs, the whole thing. But wow, that is an incredible story. So you had this gift. You were able to sing. What was your day job? What did you?
I mean, gift is a strong word for it, but yeah.
Anybody that can sing, it's a gift. To me, it's a gift.
He's kind of like a Hollywoodized version of Jackie. He's a lot cuter than Jackie. When Jackie was younger,
I'm the Luke Wilson version of Jackie Mason. Because I've worked at a CVS. No, what was my day job? It was just something in the financial district. I have my study is music and audio and sound, and actually by profession I am now a theatrical sound designer. So I've had some shows at off-Broadway New World stages, and I've been doing that for about 15 years now, in and around the country.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So this musical, though, is this written by your mother, Sheba?
So she wrote them. She wrote the whole show. There is one song that was written by Ian, which is about. It's called "The Finger." That's the famous night that Jackie was said to have given Ed Sullivan the finger, and Ian just felt so strongly that we needed a scene like that in the play, so he wrote the song.
So that set Jackie back in his career, right? And again, for all the kids out there, Ed Sullivan back in the day, Google it, Wikipedia it, if you have any, want to get any information about entertainment, because this man was so crucial. Just to let everybody know, he was the one that put the Beatles on television for the first time.
If they even know who the Beatles were.
They know, yeah. Well, they should. God, I hope so.
That picture that was on Vanity Fair. For all of those of you out there that don't know, you remember that picture on Vanity Fair where it had Colbert, it had Kimmel, it had all the late night people on the one picture of Vanity Fair. Squeeze them all into one person. That's Ed Sullivan. Right.
And somebody that looks like Ed Sullivan today would never get on television. I mean, he was like an odd, so he should have been like a postman. You know what I mean? Like he would look like an odd looking guy. But anyway.
Not only, and about the way he talked, it's so weird.
But he was incredible. And again, back in the day, just a few channels to choose from. He had Elvis Presley, he had everybody, every singer, every comedian. So can you tell us, though, can you tell everybody about The Finger, like what exactly happened?
Well, so, when you're a comedian, you're about to go on one of these shows, you have your exact set, like so ready to go, your exact 5 minutes, every word down to the syllable, right? So he's in the middle of his set, you're so prepared for it. And they start waving him off and he's so confused. Like, what are they waving? What's the waving and the waving? So he starts going like this, but it's Sullivan interpreted.
But why were they waving him off?
Oh, they were because the president was about to make an address.
Johnson was going to talk and like break it. They only had 4 channels, right? So if the president went on television back in 68, 67, something like that, everything shut down. Everything went to the president. And that was the moment during primetime television, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. In 1967, talking about Vietnam, a big war that was going on. So they were telling Jackie to, hey, cut your act, shut it down. We're gonna take you off air. And he thought that Ed was just being a jerk off. So he didn't know what he was doing. Yeah.
He was so confused. So he actually went like this. He thumbed. What did you say in the song? I merely struck.
I don't know. He did like a this or like it just flapped his arm, like, what are you talking about kind of thing. And the audience, because it was just such a brief second, and the technology of the time, the blurriness, the graininess, black and white, right? Could easily have been interpreted as right. Right. He claims it wasn't. There was a lawsuit about it, a defamation suit that came later. many years later, but it was big news and it was the gossip all around entertainment, all around Hollywood. Did you see Jackie Mason give Ed Sullivan the finger? And so he was blacklisted basically from doing these kind of late night shows because you could not do that. There was a taboo. There was a quota of a box that you can fit in as an entertainer. You can't say these words and you can't do these things and you can't insult, certainly Ed Sullivan.
And he was
almost like
right? He was blacklisted for that, right? He couldn't work for years.
He was like the original victim of cancel culture, really.
Right.
Tell her about the thing you said about Louis.
Oh, so, Louis C.K. did my show, at the Three Monkeys once, a couple of times.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so he said to me,
Well, wait, hold on. For those of you out there that might not know who Louis C.K. is, what's his story? What happened to him?
Well, I like him, so I don't want to
Well, it's public knowledge. It's not like you're saying anything. It's not public knowledge.
I like him too, and I think his situation was not a Harvey Weinstein situation. There's different levels, and unfortunately, I think Louis got thrown into that bucket because this was all happening at the same time. That was not the situation at all. We won't get into the graphic details, but he blah, blah, blah in front of women, blah, blah, blah. Was it stupid? For sure. Was it abusive? And,
here we go. The point is for the point of the joke. She's about to tell you a joke. So for the point of the joke, the context is that there was some self-gratification going on in Louis C.K.'s realm, and that got publicized. That became public knowledge. Right. And so then he got thrown off. He got blacklisted in his own way, and then found himself at Sheba's comedy show. And tell us what happens.
That's what happens when you get blacklisted.
You can find yourself with the children of blacklisted comedians.
Why am I always around when people are blacklisted?
That's so funny.
But anyway, so he comes.
It's a safe space, Three Monkeys. That's why.
So he comes to my show. He says to me, I happen to have a lot in common with your father because we're both victims of cancel culture. And, the thing I did is very similar to what he did. I said, I don't know how similar it is. I mean, they both involve fingers, but I don't know how similar it is.
Well, the end result was similar. And also, Louis is having the career of his life as your dad resurrected himself. Even the end result had a lot of comment. I like Louis too. I'm a supporter. I think I'm glad, at the end of the day, he has the last laugh. So there you go. There's my opinion on that. But that's very, 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 very interesting. So what possessed your mom to write a musical and now make this a show, make this an actual show after she went through I realize, again, pain, going back to, art winds up becoming art. But she also had you, and, you're around this constantly. So what was the trigger point? Where did your mother be like, okay, I think I'm going to write about this and put this on stage?
Well, she wrote a very early incarnation of the show after only 3 years seeing him. So, he would see her every winter season when he happened to be in Florida doing his shows, right? And so she wrote a little blip of a play, My 3 Seasons with Jackie Mason. And it had this song, Today, Tomorrow, or Next Year in it, which it still has in it. Because her mother would always help her through it. And she said, well, if he doesn't call you today, he'll call you tomorrow. If he doesn't call you tomorrow, he'll call you next year. Which is really hard as a woman, when you miss someone. So she wrote this play. And then, she used to play herself, and then she realized she couldn't sing. And so then, and then as I got older, I started playing her because it's a real psychoanalytic, crazy thing that I play her and I become pregnant with myself in the play,
But we have to appreciate too that we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Oh my God. I can't wait to go see this. Everybody, 2 more Sundays at Caroline's on Broadway, November 13th and November 20th. 3 p.m. And Caroline's is located on Broadway. It's 1626 Broadway between 49th and 50th Street. It's a great venue, by the way. So that's a nice space to do a show. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Oh my gosh.
So we have to appreciate too, and we don't say it often enough, I think, in these kind of public forums. But Ginger, how old was she when she met Jackie?
I'm not allowed to say that.
Okay, well, about.
She was in her late 20s.
She was young.
Okay, late 20s, but there you go. But the thing that we don't remind people about enough is that she was like a young artistic kid, not autistic, artistic kid like the rest of us. She played the piano, she played the guitar, she was influenced by folk music, she loved a Jewish music, she loved pop music of the time, and she was a writer. I mean, she got an MA in English, and ultimately for a lot of her career, to sustain Sheba and sustain this child that she now had, was a teacher in South Florida. So she was a creative type, she was a literary type, she maybe not a singer, fine, but did this as part of her own prose work, as part of her own as her own catharsis in that way.
That's a good point.
Give a little capsule to it.
Like she was already
it wasn't a random, kind of let me find some vessel to capture this. But ultimately, if you want to look at it in a more ontological way, right? It was written for this moment right now, right? It was written so that her daughter would have a concept of who her father was. If Ginger was aware that, okay, well, Jackie's not going to be around, right? But I want her to know who Jackie Mason is and was, and how to appreciate him for the rest of her life. So this is the context that I want her to see him in and learn about him and fulfill her own destiny through and be inspired by.
And she's other plays too that she's written that have nothing to do with Jackie Mason.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, is your mom still in Florida?
Yeah, but she flies back and forth for the show. She's married to a cancer now.
To a cancer? Yeah.
So she has moved on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. For anybody wondering, yes, your mom has moved on. I met your mom. I met your mom at Broadway Comedy Club. But so what was it like, just to go back for a second? So you're growing up, kids talk about their parents, their dad. You went to, your friend's house. And I mean, did your friends know who your dad was? Did people know? Or because it was so public, people just knew? Or like, do you remember how you managed that as a kid? And
yeah, people always knew. They really knew back then. I was born at the end of 85, and like in the early 90s when I was 6 and 7, I mean, he was big, 8. He was all over, and everyone knew, and everyone was always excited when I would come to their house. They weren't so excited when they came to my house because we never lived in such a great house. Right. But once they came to my house, they never came back. But to be honest, like there were a couple of kids whose fathers I got like really close to when I was like 8. This one kid, this girl, Ashley Caruso, she was my best friend, and her father, like I got so like attached to her father that it was almost like sad. And when her parents got divorced, I would like give him Father's Day cards. I was like really attached to this kid's father, but right. As a father.
Yeah, right. Because you didn't have that parental guidance, that other parent. I mean, there's always an effect when one is missing. It's one thing if they're not together, but it's one thing when like one is missing, as you obviously experience, Ian, as well. So.
My stepfather is great. Like they did date a lot when I was a kid, but they their relationship was like off and on a lot. And now they're married like over 20 years. Oh, and okay. He's great. He's a great guy.
So you found some stability. You found some stability. I mean, he's never going to take.
He's stable. I don't know if I found stability.
I meant in that particular arena of. So Ian, so how do you get into character? How do you become Jackie, to not play him cartoonish, to sort of play him as he is? which is kind of hard because his personality on stage was a little cartoonish, but you're also trying to tell this story about, he reneged, on being a dad. Like, so where do you find?
Do you want me to answer it, or do you want to answer it?
Yeah, no, I want you to, as an actor, how you sort of prepare, and then what did you do to prepare? I mean, did you watch all of as many specials as you possibly could? Did you ever see Jackie in person?
Too many questions. I got to have answers to the wall. Hold on, one at a time. So for the first round of things.
Yes.
Now I had a really good punchline lined up, but the more questions came. So the first question was, how do you prepare to play the role of Jackie Mason? And my punchline answer is, I wake up. Right, because it just honestly, I know him, right, and I'm not saying that I know Jackie Mason literally, which now I do, which is the answer to a later question. But I mean, but the character is just, it's one of those sociological mythos, right? That you get him. He's in the ether. He's in our culture. He's in our blood. And if you're what do you call it? Mid-Atlantic Jew, right? A kid that grew up in a Jewish community in the 80s. Everyone was Jackie Mason, right? And you looked at anyone that you looked to, his whole shtick came from that community. So if you were involved in that community, you can't not already be Jackie Mason on some level, right? I didn't realize that growing up, and I didn't know that would ever be a value in my life. In fact, I tried to run away from probably as much as I possibly could. But ultimately, when I saw that ad on there, I said, oh my God, I know this. I can do this without even thinking, right? Now, I'm not saying that I'm the best impersonator out there on the planet. I'm not saying I'm the best actor out there on the planet. But this character was familiar enough to me to be able to invoke him without a tremendous amount of self-study or personal study on his behalf. Now, that's not to say that I didn't do that, because I absolutely did. So when I got the role, of course, now, all right, who is Jackie Mason? What are his idiosyncrasies? What are his tics? Who is he? What do I need to take on as an actor? So then that level gets applied to it. And then, of course, being around, I mean, this is really what did it for me. Being around Ginger and Sheba, you're like, I can't, you guys are Jackie Mason, right? So like, then there's this bleed from the outside coming in that I can't not be Jackie Mason when I'm around them, right? Because they evoke Jackie Mason from me, because that's how they exist in that world where he exists in their world. So that's 2 questions down. Third question is, did I ever meet him? And the answer is yes. Once we got the role, once I got the role, so it was back in 2012, 2013, I was walking around town like everyone does, like you have, at Applejack Diner and what have you. But he was at Westway this time. He was at Westway Diner. I think that's what it's called. And 42nd and 9th, somewhere around.
I just passed it yesterday. Yes, Westway.
Yeah, there you go. And so he was in there, and I saw Jill. I knew about Jill at that time too. She had her glasses on, even though it was 10 p.m. Sunglasses, that is. And they were sitting down, and they were at the table, and I thought to myself, I said, I've never seen him before in my life, but obviously, like, there's a psychic buzz going on, so we came into the same path in the world, and so this is my opportunity. I'm gonna have to say something. I'm gonna have to confront him on some level. So he was in there, and I saw him get up from his table and go to the cashier. I don't know if he was paying or ordering something, but I saw that he was alone, right? And I saw, okay, he was going to the bathroom. I think that's where he was going. And I said, well, he's alone, all right. He's not with her, because I know that she shuts down conversations that you try and have with him. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to go in there, and I'm just going to be nice. And I don't know what I'm going to say, but I go up to him and I say, the average thing that an average person would say. I say, Jackie, and he turns to me, and he likes fans. He loves fans. He's always been open to adoring people that are not wanting child support. And so
his own flesh and blood, right?
So I say, Mr. Mason, I'm a big fan. It's really, really nice to meet and see you. And he was very, very, responsive to that statement. And he goes, oh, it's very nice. What is your name? And he shakes my hand, and I tell him my name. And then I say, while I'm shaking his hand, so I have his confidence now at this moment, right? And I said, and I'm working with your daughter Sheba in a show. And then he slows down his glance. He opens his eyes, he raises his eyebrows, and he says, "You shouldn't get yourself involved in other people's personal business. You should really watch what you're doing here. I don't appreciate it. I'm not interested in this kind of and he has such an intensity about him, right? It's an understated intensity about him. And in that moment, I just felt myself going, oh shit, what can of worms did I open? Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was really, really crazy. It was really crazy. And I walked out of that moment, right? I just kind of, I said, okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. She would love to hear from you, I'm sure. I was able to get that out. And then I walked out of that experience, never really having had any interaction with him ever again. A little bit shaken from the experience, but feeling really good that I said something, right? Really good that I presented her idea to him. And I don't think I ever could have continued to do the show if I didn't make that interaction happen for myself on an ethical level, I think, on a moral level, in that moment. So I was very grateful for God to open that channel up to me and allow that to happen. Because now, 10 years later, we're able to talk about it. And we're able to have a great show about it.
Right. Wow. That is some story. So there are a couple of other actors that I know that are in the musical. Rich Carucci, who is funny is an understatement. And I didn't realize, because I went to the website, because you have a website, by the way, the Jackie Mason musical, so you could purchase tickets there as well, or just Google it and you'll find it. Rich, I didn't realize Rich was like a child actor, right? He did things as a kid.
He was in the Chef Boyardee commercial.
I had no idea. I've known Rich Carucci for 15 years. I had no idea. That's amazing. So Rich Carucci, hilarious, and Jeffrey Paul, who we also, another fellow comic, also very, very funny. So what do they play in the show?
Rich Carucci plays a barfly, and he also plays a Jew packing a doggy bag.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And Jeffrey Paul plays, like, over Jackie's life, he had some dealings with Frank Sinatra, and one of his goons once came over to Jackie and beat him up on stage and heckled him. So Jeffrey Paul plays that guy.
Oh, wow.
Like life kind of a thing.
So you have other things. So the musical is obviously it's very big, much about your story, but you've got other stories in there about him as well. So
right. So it's not to only be, like, here's this sob piece, you know, it's also to illuminate. Like, for example, there's a song called Celebrity Seekers, where everybody's approaching Jackie at this coffee shop, and, and they're all gathering around him. So it sort of shows, like, just how that is, how where he was coming from with all that, There's a song called Ode to the Early Bird Special, because, a lot of their whirlwind romance took place going from diner to deli to coffee shop, caring about early bird specials and things like that, and it's a big chorus number. And then again, the finger. Yeah.
Well, that and I don't think we've ever mentioned publicly either that your mother was a belly dancer, right? That was part of her artistic kind of a retinue at that time as well. She had a fabulous body, a great looking chick, and I guess Jackie knew about that, right? Was she doing that when she knew him? Yeah,
she was totally a belly dancer.
Yeah, so he would come and see her perform. And so there's this whole fabulous belly dance routine too in the middle of this show about Jackie Mason, where you're like, what the hell is going on now? But it's all this magical kind of stuff out of nowhere that was really happening at the time and in her life.
Yeah, out of the blue, there's just a belly dancing scene.
Oh my God. So it's very, very creative. How long is the show?
It's 90 minutes with a 10-minute intermission.
Perfect. That's perfect. So you've had a long journey with this show, and I'm very excited for you because I got a really good feeling. I don't know. I just have a really, really good feeling. I hope
it's not the same feeling you had when you invested in the Donna Summer show. No, I'm just kidding. Kidding.
That was embarrassing.
You're bad. That's terrible. You're bad.
No, Sheba, no. I invested in one show I wasn't the main investor, and it was like it couldn't have bombed any quicker. It's not one of my prouder moments. And I have, by the way, I used to be a CPA, so I really should have known better. But okay, that's a whole nother thing. Maybe I'll write a musical about what a fuck up I am. But anyway, but I have a good feeling because you're really, look, you've put a lot of work into this. We're in a different place. You're in a different place. This show has evolved over time. You've added things to it, and like any show, of course, as you go on. So what would you like to happen? Where would you like to see this go?
Well, thank you for saying that. We really wanted to just excel, Broadway tours, ideally, aside, even if you don't know who Jackie Mason is, it's still a show that you could be interested in, like people are going to see the Neil Diamond show. A lot of people don't know who he is. It's a big thing on Broadway right now. And I hear they don't even have much of a set either. But the Buddy Holly show, no one knows who he is, anymore. So we're hoping that it has a life of its own, regardless of, even if you don't know who Jackie Mason is, not just for Jews or a certain demographic, but, it's a romantic comedy, and so we're hoping that it gets the attention of Todd Haynes and other people.
Well, and in addition to that, I mean, you got to appreciate, besides these Neil Diamonds and these Donna Summers and people like that Jackie made his claim to fame on Broadway, right? What comedian other than Billy Crystal, you can say Billy Crystal, and so someday when his love child comes out and does the Billy Crystal musical, that has just as much legitimacy on Broadway and in theater. So you really got to be asking yourself, why isn't the Jackie Mason musical a bigger sensation, more people known about it? Because it belongs it belongs in New York. He's a New York icon. It belongs on stage. He's a stage icon. It's funny as hell. The music's great, and it's just, you got Sheba Mason. You got the blood daughter in the damn show, who's a fantastic comedian in her own right. So it's got everything going for it.
Thank you.
That's a great sell. Yeah, I see that. I like that you're talking about it as, like you said, a romantic comedy, a story, even if you don't know who it is. It's got a very interesting, intriguing, I can't make some of this stuff up type of a basis for it. So it just is, and it takes you on a journey.
Yeah. And like Ian said, he did have 8 one-man Broadway shows. He did win Tony Awards. He was, kind of like one of the original people to do stand-up on Broadway, I'm pretty sure.
Right. I have a quick, very funny story to tell you. One New Year's Eve, my husband and I were down by Times Square, and we went to go see like an early show, and then we went to dinner. We did everything like early, and we got stuck in Times Square, and we're trying to get through like 44th Street, and they had already barricaded the street for the ball drop and everything, and all of a sudden, you hear this voice. And it was your dad, and he had a show, and he goes, I gotta get to the show, and then finally, like, people were like, it's Jackie Mason, let him through. It's like, I gotta get to my show. And I'll never forget, he was like waddling, and he had to let waddle. It was so fun. It was so funny. I'm like, yeah, could you imagine if he was stuck and he couldn't get out?
That would look really funny with him stuck in that Times Square brouhaha. That's so funny.
Right? Not only that, but we were on Frank Morano's on WABC last night, and he was playing a clip from Jackie on Johnny Carson. So this I don't know what year you were doing the New Year's thing, but when this clip was when Jackie was basically just doing his first one-man Broadway show, and he had this line from it, which is literally what you're talking about right now. He said, the show is such a sensation. The show is so good. Everyone's leaving every other Broadway show to come to my Broadway show. The house is so packed every single night that I can't even get into my own show myself. I have to be doing it from across the street, right?
Oh my gosh. So Sheba, I have to ask you this question. Do you love your dad? Like, do you have?
Wow, that's a strong question.
You have love for your dad? Like, where is your head's at? And especially now that he's passed, like, you're a grown adult, he's passed. And I'm sorry that you couldn't, there couldn't have been, even at the end, like a resolution. I know that's hard, but like, how do you feel? Because I, from listening to you and even doing this, because if this is something you didn't want to talk about or anything, you would never put this on stage. It's almost like a little bit of carrying on his legacy. I mean, it's a nice homage. We've been talking now for 45 minutes and, you bring up a lot, as does Ian, about how talented he was. And he was the first to do this and the first to do that. I mean, I realize that whole not recognizing you as his daughter per se is, I don't know what that feels like personally, but to me, like there's a lot of respect there for him, which also says a lot about you, because people go sometimes the other way and they just like shut down and they don't want to talk about it. And then it just, and then it just sort of like brews inside until it explodes. So like, how do you feel about him?
Well, that's a good question. I was really like my mother and grandmother. How I have like a joke about how my grandmother helped raise me. She was like a father to me. She even had the beard. They sort of like really from a very young age allowed for no resentment at all. Like they just didn't want me to grow up with like these feelings of, it's unhealthy to like constantly walk around with anger. And my grandmother used to tell me, wear it like it's a cologne, wear it like it's a cologne. Instead I kind of wear it like a tattoo.
That you can't get lasered off.
Look, do I love him? I mean, he's so lovable, right? I love him from a distance. Am I bothered by the way things turned out? Sure. Would it have been nice if he was even in my life a little? Right. Yeah, I think he, that would have been nice, but I don't hate him. And, I love who he is from a distance, but I think what he did was definitely schmucky.
Right.
Well, and to just jump on that little bit, Sheba and I literally had a conversation 2 nights ago, 48 hours ago, about a deep conversation. If we're allowed to get a little deep for just a second, because it's a deep question, it's a beautiful question. Is that she and I, we have never in our lives, and we connect on this level. She and I connect on this level. We have never in our lives received paternal love. And I think that we have spent, both of us, Sheba and I, and you can deny this or you can challenge the statement I'm about to make, Sheba, please. But I think that we have sought through a lot of our relationships, through our careers, right, in the way that we engage with audiences, and that the love that you can feel from an audience is probably the closest thing, because we don't know, I don't know, Sheba doesn't know, to what true paternal love is, because it is uninhibited joy at your being. And when you can, as an actor, as a performer, engage an audience on a level where you are evoking uninhibited joy from them, there is nothing more beautiful in the world, right? And so if she didn't have that vacuum in her life, if I didn't have that vacuum in my life, I don't know what value we would have even ever bothered in pursuing the arts or something like this. I would have been perfectly content at a day job working at CVS with Luke Wilson, because you have that father, right? And you can go home from your job and you can hang out with your dad and play ball and do these things and go fishing and go on the hunting trips. But if you don't have that, you become a broken person if you can't find a way to replace that. And so I think this show just allows me, I can say 100%, to do that in my life and for my life, and also to rationalize how does a man have to think in his life to be able to be okay with leaving his child, right? That I have to play that character, and that's incredibly important to me as an individual. And Sheba, you'll have to tell us what your relationship with that experience is.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you about that wholeheartedly. Well, anyone on stage probably is missing something, right? And that's why they choose to be on stage. But I think you're right. I mean, this show does help everybody reconcile with these issues. And, like he said, I agree.
And there are other people in the audience as well that, there's got to be a few at least every night, every time we put this on, that have something or some kind of conflict with a father or, that is not really there for them. So it kind of goes on to a deeper level. But I'm happy to hear that you said even loving them for a distance. I think that's a really healthy way to go, and kudos to Nana and your mom for bringing you up that way and not being in anger, because that could have absolutely went that way easily. So that's huge. That's really huge, and I think this is great, and I think this is a way of really keeping his legacy. For anybody that would be critical that first of all, they need to come and see the show. First of all, to find out what it's about, but it's not that. So I think the longer that you do this, the more that will prove itself. We need to wrap up, but I want to say also, we could talk, because this we could talk about for another hour. But you did something that is beyond magical, and you created a room in Manhattan, in Midtown, Three Monkeys, and it is a bar downstairs, but if you go upstairs, it's a fabulous room. You can't hear anybody downstairs, and then your room has its own room with doors, and I am so impressed.
Oh, thank you.
I sincerely mean, I am so impressed that you really are a woman that makes your own opportunities. This is good. You really hit your stride. Your stand-up's fantastic. You've got this room. You've got named television comedian Louis C.K., Dave Attell, and then you're also going out on the road with, I know, Joe Machi.
Yeah, Joe Mackey a lot.
Yeah,
and Joe I'm headlining on my own a little, and occasionally Dave Attell will have me occasionally.
I mean, these are big names. You really, really created your own opportunity. So I commend you for that. So not easy in New York, and all the competition and not just comedy.
I got really lucky because it was technically outdoors, so during the pandemic, it was the only thing going on,
Oh, really? Was that, you mean the shed outside? You mean?
Yeah, it's like a covered courtyard.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's great. I love coming. It's great. You have shows every night. So by the way, everybody, not only do we have the Jackie Mason musical, which will be playing at Caroline's on Broadway, November 13th, Sunday, and November 20th, Sunday, 3 p.m., 90-minute show. You go in, you have a great afternoon, then you go out and have an early dinner. And then I'm sure you'll be doing more of this. And then you've got Three Monkeys, which is on 53rd Street. Just give me the address.
54th and Broadway.
54th and Broadway. And there's a show every night at about 8:00. Guys, give us all your websites and your social media so people can follow you.
So this is thejackymasonmusical.com and ShebaMason.com with one E, SHEBA. It's me.
Great. And Ian, do you have your... You have social media, Instagram?
Listen, I'm just Ian Wehrle. I am on no social media, so you'll have to come and see the show if you want to meet me.
Oh my God, how do you do that? Okay, good for you. Well, that means that you read a lot, okay, because you're not scrolling and having FOMO like I do. But okay, so you guys, I'm going to come and see it. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll get this right up by tomorrow. So
great.
So this way we can push it out. And I listen, guys, go see this musical, and if you have any connections of getting shows or you're looking for a performance, this is a perfect one also to, at a theater near, wherever your local theater is. So This is definitely a great road show. No
We travel easy. We travel easy.
Travel light, just to carry on, no check-in. Okay. All right, great. Thank you guys. My name is Ellen Karis. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Greek Chick Comic, Ellen Karis, Greek Goddess Comedy. My website, ellenkaris.com, where this podcast and all the other ones that I've done for 7 seasons every week, but I love it. You can find all those there. And this is great. Thank you, everybody. Until next time. Bye.